Okay, I'm going to start back with some video posts here, probably the next few posts, because, well, my hands are getting a little tired of typing, and just think sometimes it's good to try to communicate things in visual format as well. I hope everyone's been enjoying the posts in the past few weeks. We'll try to keep with this format of considering a subject through different disciplines, philosophy, literature, and psychology, and I think we'll start to see a lot of good connections between the different disciplines. Thoughts sort of cycle through, starting with the abstractness of philosophy and cycling that into more concrete characters in literature, and then also seeing from a scientific standpoint what psychology can teach us on these different subjects. I've also toyed with the idea of having sort of a synthesis post where we kind of try to put together everything in one post, and I think that might be helpful because we're sort of considering a lot of different thoughts from a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different works. But I think at the end we at least need some tentative, not conclusions, but at least tentative ideas that have been generated from the different works. So hopefully that works as well. We are talking this time, as we talked in our last post, about Gogol's novel Dead Souls. Last time we sort of laid out the basic structure of the novel, where the main character, Chichikov, that decides to purchase dead souls, basically dead serfs, from landowners in Tsarist Russia. These are serfs that had died, but were listed as living on a government census, so he wanted to purchase the serfs at a discount so that he could own them and be a big landowner and be respected in the town. So his plan was to purchase the dead serfs from these landowners who used to own them at a huge discount. And basically, I'm pretty much done with half the novel, and so far what's happened is he's gone to one landowner after the next and sort of engaged in these sort of disgusting transactions of purchasing these dead souls from the landowners. Now, what's interesting is not only is sort of Gogol obviously characterizing Chichikov as a character with, willing to do anything to profit and to gain esteem, but also that the other landowners are, engaging in the same transactions with him for money. And several of the scenes, several of the landowners, they're actually bartering and, trying to come up with the right price and saying, some of the landowners are sort of saying, I could still, I think they're valuable, and Chichikov's like, well, they're dead. And so anyway, there's really this undercurrent of, I think Gogol is clearly, suggesting, as we brought out in our last post, that this is a society where everything has a price, and there's no transaction that's not dishonorable. The fact that a transaction is profitable is viewed as basically the usefulness of it, or the fact that it should go forward, or no questions are really asked, and basically as long as there's a buyer and a seller for a commodity, that people are willing to go forward with it, and even if it's a dead soul. So the novel, as we talked about last time, we saw, when we particularized down into Chichikov's character, that there were some characteristics that I think would be broadly seen in you, me, everybody. That sort of characterization that Gogol gets so deep into. We saw some traits such as, flattery, which I think is common nowadays. Of course, there's, the sort of criticizing of others while not finding fault in oneself, lack of humility, sort of single-minded focus on achievement to the detriment of other things. So I think, again, as we talked about last time, I I think Gogol was trying to use the example of the dead souls as a specific example, but also he was trying to generalize it to something that the reader could relate to. Today I wanted to sort of focus on we could continue on talking about Chichikov and how unpleasant his character is, but today I actually want to focus on a way out, of this sort of paradox, not paradox, but of the character of Chichikov and what we see here. And I think that the novel, at least the portion I've read so far, half so far, it really doesn't give a way out, but it shows that there were times where Chichikov gets potentially a way out, but for whatever reason doesn't go with that and doesn't pursue it, doesn't pursue a way out of this dead soul that he's placed himself into. And to do that, I want to look at a few passages. There's three in particular I want to focus on. There's one where he is as he's looking at the list of dead souls that he started to accumulate from the various landowners. He starts to look at the list and see that these are human people. These were people that existed and had names and identities and things that they were doing with their lives, and they were known for certain traits, or they had certain personality traits, very specific. Some were angry, some were great at doing a certain thing, and he starts to read the list and is actually absorbed in it. So one would think at that point maybe he would start to have some doubts about what he's doing, or whether it's okay to profit in this way. But what happens is, as he's done with that list, as he completes the list, and after he's done reviewing it, he sort of just gets up and has to go to a ball, and that's it. He doesn't think more about it. He doesn't focus more on the people that are the dead souls that he's purchasing, or any of those questions that would arise from that. I want to find the passage where he gets up. Okay, here it is. Ah, well, he sighed, looking at his watch. It has now gone 12 o'clock. Why have I so forgotten myself? There is still much to be done, yet I go shutting myself up and letting my thoughts wander. What a fool I am. So, that's an interesting passage there. Again, he is, at some point, really interested in looking at the identities of these souls, but then he says that he's a fool, that he's wasted his time, he's got more pressing things to do, and he goes on his merry way. So to me, that brings into a larger point, for our own life, that there are moments where we get a glimpse that a certain way of life is not, certain values, certain way of life is not pleasing to us. It's not something that we find much meaning in. We see some sort of reminder of that, or some glimpse of something, but then again, it's sort of like a reverie. We get snapped back out of it, and we go on our merry way. And that's sort of, I guess, the point where it's sort of an inflection point. You see these things, you can um, gain meaning out of them and actually try to probe further into them, or you can just wake up and go on your merry way. And I think that's definitely one instance in the novel where we see that. Another instance is where one of the landowners that Chichikov visits is a very old man. He's probably the richest landowner in the village of N, and Chichikov visits him to again purchase more dead souls. When he visits with him, he sees that this guy is just he's probably one of the miserliest guys around. I mean, his clothes are tattered. He doesn't he doesn't treat himself well. He doesn't treat other people well. His servants. He's very bitter. He's a Scrooge character basically, there's really nothing warm about him. But there is one passage where, again, even for this sort of Scrooge-like character, he starts talking about the fact that, Chichikov asks him after they've engaged in the transaction of selling the dead souls, is there anyone that we have to go into town and complete this, or have a lawyer help write this up? Can we go now? Do you have friends in town that could do this for you? And the guy says, no, I don't have I don't have any friends. He said, I don't have any friends. And I said, what do you mean you don't have any friends? And he said, well, you really have no friends? And they said, well, there's this one guy, and he's visited me once or twice, and we used to go to school together and climb walls together. And when he's saying this, I want to read this passage. When this character, Scrooge-like character's name is Plushkin. When Plushkin sort of in his mind thinks about this character that he used to go climbing with, Gogol described it this way. Over Plushkin's wooden features there had gleamed a ray of warmth, a ray which expressed, if not feeling, at all events, feeling's pale reflection. Just such a phenomenon may be witnessed when for a brief moment a drowning man makes a last reappearance on the surface of a river, and there arises from the crowd lining the banks a cry of hope that even yet the exhausted hands may clutch the rope which has been thrown him, may clutch it before the surface of the unstable element shall have resumed forever its claim, dread vacuity. But the hope is short-lived, and hands disappear. Even so did Pushkin's face after its momentary manifestation of feeling become meaner and more insensible than ever. Again, similar to what we talked about, we just talked about that there are moments where, again, we get some sort of warmth, we get some different perspective, and this perspective that we sort of have in most of our day-to-day life. It opens up sort of momentarily some possibilities that we hadn't thought of, but again, we revert back to our baseline existence, our baseline perspective. And you see that in this passage, and it's possible for a miser like Pushkin. It's certainly possible for anyone else. Earlier in the novel, Gogol, again, he veers away from the plot in many points in the novel to just sort of give his philosophical reflections. And in one instance, he says, "In a moment, may joy turn to sorrow. Should one halt long enough over it, in a trice only, God can say what ideas may strike one." So basically, we can't control or know what we're going to encounter in the world, what ideas or what visions or images we're going to see, and how that's going to move us. But things may appear, and they may have very strong connotations to us. And I guess the point is that rather than moving on, we should sometimes reflect on them more than some of these characters do. Let's look at another passage, and that is one where Chichikov gets a glimpse of a woman, of a lady that he's interested in. Let me find that passage. this is between his going from one landowner to the next, and he sees this woman, and again, this creates a momentary excitement in him. Let me find that passage. Throughout, Chichikov had been gazing at the young unknown with great attention, and had even made one or two attempts to enter into conversation with her, but without success. Indeed, when the ladies departed, it was as in a dream that he saw the girl's comely appearance. The delicate features of her face and the slender outline of her form vanished from his sight. It was as in a dream that once more he saw only the road, the britchka, the 3 horses, the cellophane, and the bare empty fields. Everywhere in life, yes, even in the plainest, the dingiest ranks of society, as much as in those which are uniformly bright and presentable, a man may happen upon some phenomenon which is so entirely different from those which have hereto fallen to his lot. Everywhere through the web of sorrow of which our lives are woven, there may suddenly break a clear, radiant thread of joy, even as suddenly along the street of some poor, poverty-stricken village, which ordinarily sees naught but a farm wagon, there may come bowling a gorgeous coach with plated harness, picturesque horses, and a glitter of glass, so that the peasants stand gaping and do not resume their caps until long after the strange equipage has become lost to sight. Thus the golden-haired maiden makes a sudden, unexpected appearance in our story, and as suddenly as unexpectedly disappears. Indeed, had it not been that the person concerned was Chichikov, and not some youth of 20, or a student, or in general a man standing on the threshold of life, what thoughts would not have sprung to birth and stirred and spoken within him? For what a length of time would he not have stood entranced as he stared into the distance and forgot alike his journey, the business still to be done, the possibility of incurring loss through lingering, himself, his vocation, the world, and everything else that the world contains. But in the present case, the hero was a man of middle age and of cautious and frigid temperament. Again, similar to the other passages, Gogol talks about this moment we have where these moments everywhere, everyone, wherever they are, he says, in the plainest ranks of society, as much as in those which are uniformly bright, that man may happen upon some phenomenon which is so entirely different than that what he's seen before, and these are what he describes as radiant threads of joy that gives us glimpses of things that we hadn't expected before. And he says that had Chichikov been more open to the experience, had he been younger, less frigid, less mature in some ways, less calculating, he would have lost himself in that moment and forgotten his other anxieties and thoughts. But of course, Chichikov is not that character. He is someone that is, again, always calculating, always looking for some advantage, looking to gain things and acquire and move above his status. So he could not have appreciated that moment as he should have. So these are sort of some of the big passages I saw that I can make this point in the work. And so I think to conclude, again, going back to what we had started with in this series on beauty, we started with, I think, probably one of the best descriptions of beauty we have read so far, which is Alexander Nehamas, and his thoughts, of course, were that on beauty was that we have to be open to it. We have to want to have beauty in our life. We have to be open to the possibility that beauty may hurt us, and we have to be very intensely interested in whatever we find beautiful, because on his account, again, beauty is something that to find something beautiful is to know it and to really distinguish it from other things. So if you like a specific opera, you would know as much about that opera, so you can say, this is what I find beautiful in it, as opposed to other operas or other forms of music. And same with people, and same with hobbies and books and other things, to just say generally that you love everything, you like everything, well, it's not, at least for Nehemiah, that's not to find something beautiful. Might be something else, but it's not to find something beautiful. So I think those thoughts have certainly been, again here, shown in Chichikov. He doesn't really want beauty in his life. He wants gain. He wants to accumulate these dead souls so he can purchase, become a landowner and respected. He's not looking intensely around him. He has moments where he sees things, but he doesn't then probe further. And he doesn't really want to have beauty in his life. And so I think those thoughts have certainly been shown to be true. We'll probably turn again to the novel next time and see what else we can glean. But at least from a positive account, again, I think we see that for Chichikov and for us, for anyone, wanting beauty in your life and seeking out beauty, there are certainly both opportunities for it, but the opportunity presents an obligation and a challenge to look intensely and explore, commit deeply, wonder intensely about what is beautiful about this object, and that sort of just floating through life and not focusing in that sense, you do miss a lot. So anyway, hope this was helpful, and we'll turn to, we'll probably finish up Dead Souls tomorrow.